Evening and welcome to a Wednesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. It's going to be a good one. Peak Wilper will be back. Scott Carter will join us early to talk about a lot of changes, new hires by Billy. Also, big basketball going to be coming up on Saturday with the Gators at Auburn. And Tony Barnhart here to put it all in perspective. Mr. College Football. We join you tonight another time here on the Buddy Martin Show. So check it out. Come join us and give us your thoughts and your fears, your joys, etc., all those sort of things, like we do here on this program. This is for you Gator fans who have something to say. We want to hear it. Come on and post. We'd like to see what you got to say. So tell your friends and neighbors. The Buddy Martin Show is on the air.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hello, welcome to the program on a Wednesday night. Just watching the end of this Missouri-Tennessee game. Should be a W for the Vols, but this is a gritty team. This is the one team that could beat Florida at home. They're trailing now by 5 points with a minute 40 to go and just missed a foul shot. So let's see what happens here. I think Tennessee's got this one. Lots of news today. Billy had his press conference. He made it pretty clear about who's going to be called the plays. We talk about this all the time, and we have to have something to talk about all season. I know people will disagree with me on this, but I feel pretty confident he's got it. He's got this. I'll tell you why during the program, as I've said many times, Shane Matthews and I have talked about this. I have a problem with that. And certainly you would like to pick up where you left off at the end of last season when DJ Lagway was flinging it and feeling good in the offense. And so why disturb things? Why not let Billy run his offense? It's his offense, his team, his quarterback. And even though he's got some new names in the mix, we've talked about him all week, it really, he is the guy. He's where the buck stops. He calls the plays. And this is how most of the great ones do it that I know. The offensive coaches who are head coaches, they like to call their own plays. Now, they can do it by committee, and as Shane and I talk about all the time, it's pretty simple. Everybody gets an input. There is a consensus. You have a plan. Everybody has the same plan. You know kind of what to do on 3rd and 4 inside your own 30-yard line. You have a plan. You know what to do. So it is some wild, radical thing, but it is a big responsibility. It's kind of a signature thing. It's what coaches do. And this is something Billy has done pretty significant. He said in his comments, I'll get to those in just a minute, it's how he got here. He calling plays. And remember, you kind of like the way the Gators finished last year, finished up strong. And who was called the plays in? Well, he was called the plays. And that's what he's going to do now. Let's go see what Scott Carter has to say. Good evening to you, Scott Carter. How are you, my friend?
Hey, buddy. What's up, man? Doing all right.
Yeah, we're hanging in there tonight, and we'll see if we can get past our challenges on the internet, as always. Just talking a lot today. The Billy offensive coordinator thing just will never go away. It's one of those things that just hangs around. Everybody loves to talk about it. But in his press conference today, he made it pretty plain who's going to be called the plays. He's going to be called the plays. And like I said, why wouldn't he? It's his team. It's his quarterback. What have you. Before I do that, Let's talk about the new hires. You probably don't even know about all of them yourself, but it seems like they have an unlimited budget up there in Gainesville. Every time I turn around, there's hired somebody else. Today, 2 more, not one, 2 more. They just hired Ben Elsner, Director of Football Strategy, according to Gator's own line. He'll have the number 2 lead role in the front office. Napier, they'll play good. He said today, he said he does not plan to go alone at year 4, also not see play calling as duties been outside the program, I'd hope. And then also this news just breaking, another linebackers coach, Robert Bala, I'm not sure which one, was preferred by Gator's own line today. And he'll work with the inside linebackers. He interviewed on Wednesday. Apparently he's also going to be hired. I can't keep up. This is an organizational chart nightmare, Scott.
A lot different than the organization charts of old, for sure, buddy. And, but Billy actually talked about that quite a bit today, not specifically those guys. He said there was some movement there. They were close on some hires, so obviously it came out later. Vinny Cincinnati worked with Robert Bala at Washington last year, so there's a connection there. He also was at Alabama on Saban's last team, or last staff. So he just dips into his connections. And then the front office, I think he said today, he was asked about the GM role, and he said, well, it's going to be more of a department than a position. So there's going to be some more hires there. It's obviously that he's building this thing like an NFL front office, and it's just such a different world than obviously Gator fans are used to, but really college football fans around the country. The power programs, this is what they're going to look like. This is already what some of them do look like. And I think Florida is just adding the finishing pieces on it. But there's a lot of new people in the building every year, buddy. I mean, the turnover nowadays in college athletics just blows me away. I mean, there's so many coaches coming and going. Looks like Gerald Chapman, defensive line coach, is staying for now. He interviewed with the Bears earlier this week, but they went with someone else. So having him back for now is good, and it's just where we are in the sport.
Yeah, I guess you need to have a directory when you walk down the hall, so you know who you should speak to and who you shouldn't as your officer. So a lot going on there. Well, it's going well. The news in recruiting today, not much, but there was a pickup, a flip from Tennessee, which was good, and a new long snapper. So we'll get to that in a minute. I want to get back to calling plays, which he spent a good bit of time talking about today. He said Florida is better positioned with him calling plays to build on a 4-game win streak at the end of the 8-5 season. He should be scrutinized, of course, about this, but DJ Lagway, he wants to see him evolve. He wants to see him up close, and he is a key. He says, Napier said, we get it. It's a production business. My job is to get the team to win, and I try to make decisions that reflect that. I still have conviction about it. This is the key comment right here. It's what got me here. That's the first time Billy said anything that strong about it. It's the way, he said. It's how I became head coach. It's what helped us make progress and win in the past. I'm confident it will help us do that in the future. Now, I wish he had come out with that quite some time ago and just said it. But I think it's refreshing to say, hey, I'm the man in charge, right? I'm the guy.
Yeah. I thought today actually was one of the best press conferences he's given at Florida. I thought he added some insight that he typically doesn't, starting with the offensive play call. And look, I understand the fans, they want points, they want big yards, they don't want any 3rd and 3 to ever fail. That's just the nature of the fan. I understand his point. Like he said, he came up as an offensive coordinator on the offensive side of the ball. I'm guessing in his world, there's so much just house cleaning every day, practice, all the other off the field obligations, hiring and firing staff, and just sorting through so much. I'm guessing that's his outlet on Saturdays. And he's either going to win with it by calling those plays, or he's going to lose with it. So I don't have a problem with the guys saying, hey, this is it's my team, like you said. I'm going to do it my way. It's either going to work or it's not, but I'm going to call the play. So I don't really have a problem with that. I am glad that he kind of clarified it today because it's kind of, to me, it's just like a beaten down topic. I mean, if you've been paying close attention and listening, reading between the lines, you knew he was going to be offensive coordinator or still continue calling plays.
That's right.
Now, on the other flip side, there is a team there when there are calling plays. And we've got Russ Callaway involved, on formations and different things. Ryan Callahan's involved in the quarterback input on the play. So there's a group there. But yes, at the end of the day, Billy's going to call what the play is, and they're going to execute it with their input.
Yeah, I think we'll get back to the things like happened in the bowl game. Tulane having 10 men on the field multiple times. That continues to happen, and we can't figure out what is going wrong there. Special teams. Maybe he can get – I don't know if he'll ever get a special teams coordinator or not, but basically that seems to be a problem. And then he's been criticized for that. However, he's 19-19, got a good comeback rolling. He got the quarterback for next year if you don't count Arch Manning. But if you, as I wrote this past week, if you went back and look at Arch Manning now and look at Lagway now, in terms of what you got for your investment the first 2 years, Lagway was a better deal because Arch Manning really had anything to show for it. I mean, he's going to be a great quarterback, no doubt, but certainly Lagway is not exactly shop liver. So Billy's 19-19. He's going to run his offense he's going to call this for his 8th season as the head coach. He's 45 years old. He's positioned now, and things look to be somewhat fixed. Expectations are running high. They need to make this playoff. But I think that's this is the time for Florida to strike for Billy to make his bones.
No doubt. I mean, this is the year. I think, they finished now with the 7th ranked recruiting class in the country with the latest additions. And today was quite obviously with just two players, but the bulk of the class and the transfer portal is here. I think there will be a couple other players added. He spoke today about that, maybe especially in the defensive backfield. Maybe there's some scholarships available. So there's a chance for a couple more guys during the next few months. But I think for the most part, this is the team that he's built. He said there's only 4 players remaining on the roster who were here when he took over. So now this program is clearly his program, his roster. And, in year 4 in today's college football, I mean, quite frankly, that's time. I mean, you don't need as many years as you did in the past with the portal and ways to build a roster, although he has done it methodically, and still the foundation is going to be high school recruiting, but they built through the portal as well. So we're all going to see what year 4 unfolds, but I do believe it's a huge year for Florida to finally have a real shot at cracking that college football playoff for the first time in history.
On the matter of hiring, I hope to see the name of Steve Spurrier Jr. pop up one of these days. That's the word on the street. He's going to be added as an analyst, but not confirmed yet by Billy. It'd be nice to see a Spurrier back on the coaching staff at some point in time. Bubba coming back from Tulsa, where he had a couple of years there. And, of course, he's always been coaching with Steve all these years. We're going to bring in Alan Peak Wilper in just 1 second. Before I do, I want to get a quick basketball comment from you, Scott. About this basketball team, what's going on. Talk about a mystery man who showed up last night. If you didn't know much about Florida basketball, you saw number 7 come on the floor at a crucial time when Florida was really struggling last night with Vanderbilt at home, and just knocked down 2 beautiful 3-pointers. You think, who the heck is that, and, of course, he is a guy named Urban, not Iron, Klavzar, and he has interesting background in European leagues, etc. Talk about what you know about it. He hit 2 beautiful 3 points.
Yeah, he really showed up last night. him and Denzel Aberdeen, obviously with Walter Clayton unavailable, with Elijah Martin leaving the game. It was nice to see Clavich come through, because he was a guy, remember, buddy, that had to sit out extended time. It took him forever to get cleared by the NCAA clearinghouse, or whatever that organization is called these days. And, Todd Golden had even publicly said, let's get this guy cleared. And he's finally starting to round into form. I'm sure it took him a little while to get into shape and to learn some things. But I know that he is a shooter. That's what he does best. And again, when you're without your top two playmakers at guard last night for a lot of the game, you need guys like that. And I thought Denzel Aberdeen was excellent too. I think no turnovers in 35 minutes, I read. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Yeah, they had to get those performances to win that game, and they got them. And again, it was a nice bounce back after what happened at Tennessee, obviously, on Saturday.
That's a weapon to have a guy off the bench and come in and knock those threes down like that. So I'm looking forward to watching him play. Last couple of seconds of Missouri and Tennessee. Tennessee's putting Missouri away. It's 85-79 with 6.6 seconds. So the Vols will get that one. So stand by. We're going to go get Allie and get her take on a few things. I want to get her take on all these hires today. Well, I'll tell you also about our friends at Meldon Law. They've been doing this a long time. That is sponsoring this program, backing the Gators, and you all know Jeffrey's involvement in the program. I want to encourage you. You got an opportunity to get freebies. If you go to their Facebook page, they're always giving away tickets, hard to get tickets, basketball, gymnastics, etc. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, and if you're a Gator fan, you are, I suggest you go there. It's very simple. Fill out your name or whatever. Big supporter of Florida. They're the only official law firm of Florida, the injury law firm, and they're devoted to Florida. They also have the news soon. They'll be adding another Meldon to the name on the door, and that's his daughter, who will be joining the program soon. They have full locations to serve you now: Gainesville, Ocala, Wilson Lake City. They want you to know that they're there for you if you want to need a review or a second opinion on a law case. And I've been having that thing. I've been working with them on some stuff. You should call them. They're here to serve you. Meldon Law, they won't back down, and neither will this person, Allie Peak Wilper, who just keeps on coming. Evening, Allie.
Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad you're feeling better. You were out last week. We missed you.
Yes, I was. Unfortunately, I've passed it to some of my children, but I am on the upswing, so that is good.
Yeah. A lot of news today in football.
Yeah.
Well, 2 commitments, but that's not the news. Although the 4-star flip of Tennessee was a big one.
Big, yeah.
And, if you're going to get one, that's the kind to get. And their secondary, so they got a few prospects back there.
Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, this class finished really strong. I heard Scott say 7 on 247. I think that got bumped to 8 because Michigan picked up a offensive lineman really late. But I mean, honestly, it's top 10, and that means that Billy out-recruited his record, right? The top 10 classes in theory should be the top 10 people in the AP, right? That would be everybody recruiting right on their record. And so the fact that Florida didn't even finish in the top 25 and they finished in the top 10 recruiting wise is a huge feather in Billy's cap. That is absolutely out-recruiting your record, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah, I got this graphic in the mail on email about June 11th, number 64.
Mm-hmm.
Recruiting. February 5th, 8th.
That's a huge turnaround. I mean, incredibly impressive. And if I would have told you after the Texas A&M game that Florida was still going to finish with a top 10 recruiting class, you would have told me I was crazy, And so that is Coach Napier deserves all the credit in the world for this class. And I think, the interesting thing, we always talk about statistically how you've got to consistently sign a top 5 class to win national titles, that's what the numbers tell us. But I think those numbers are going to change with it being a 12-team playoff. A top 10 class consistently should absolutely end you in the playoffs over time. There's 12 teams that make the playoffs. So this is a huge step in the right direction.
This is the year to get good because the opportunity is laid out there and a lot of good things can happen. And we're looking forward. Things have gone well for Billy. I had a laugh last week about it was going so well. He decided to focus on donuts. He went to my part of the country and went into the donut shop over here in Milton and got himself a dozen donuts, and you know how cops like donuts. I think coaches are the same way.
Yeah.
But by the way, I'm going to do a show on donuts one day because good donuts, locally made, are hard to find. I mean, I don't want to go to one of these chains and get some of those things. Real donuts. There's some great places. So we'll get to that another time. Talking football right now with Peak Wilper and Scott Carter, two of my favorite people. We talk football year round. It's what we like to talk about. Good stuff happening right now for Billy. Let's talk about Allie. You said earlier I would call you crazy if you did something. You are crazy, okay? Let's get that straight. Which is why I love you, because you're so crazy. But you have been really putting the hammer down since I can remember on Billy to get an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you've been hard charging there. And I get why. I get your reasoning. Today, Billy came out and Scott and I were saying earlier, talk more about that position than he's ever talked about it.
Yeah.
And said why he is going to call the plays. He never was going to get an offensive coordinator, although I think we thought he might. You had some people telling you that recruits were told he might.
Yeah.
He's the guy now.
Yeah.
You can give anybody the title you want to. The man's going to run his offense with his team and his quarterback. And let's face it, he was the guy calling those plays when DJ Lagway was lighting it up for those last 4 games. So obviously that works out. Your thoughts now that Billy's sort of leveled, come out and say, I'm the guy.
First of all, I think we got to give kudos to Scott Burns, who is doing a great job getting Napier out there with these interviews. I think we have learned more about Coach Napier in the past 2 weeks than we have learned about him the entire time he's at Florida. I've always been a massive advocate that more information is better than less information. And I think that when your fan base knows your coaching staff on a personal level, it makes it so much easier to root for, so much harder to root against. So I think that this is a really welcome change. I think we've learned some interesting things. Now, all of that being said, I still don't agree with the decision, but it's his decision to make. And he has explained in depth why he feels the way that he feels. And I do think, when your job depends on your offensive production, I understand the concept of betting on yourself. For me personally, I don't think the numbers say that that's necessarily the right choice, but it's hard to argue with someone who is saying, I know what got me here, and that's what I'm going to lean into. That is what I'm going to use to continue to prove myself. Like, I understand that logic, even if I don't agree with it. But I think we've heard some really interesting tidbits from him over the last couple of weeks. I found it really intriguing when he talked about why he wears black on game days. And, I don't care at all what a coach has on one way or the other, but it has always been an interesting thing to me that he wears black when our team colors are orange and blue. But I like the black flag mentality. I think that is really interesting. I loved that insight into what's going into the locker room. I wish he would have said that the first time somebody asked him about wearing black 3 years ago. It totally makes sense. And if you have, kind of a locker room identity built around that, you have sound reasoning. That's great. That's awesome. I wish we would have learned about it earlier, but I'm so glad we're hearing about it now. I feel like we've just gotten like a treasure trove of information the last couple of weeks that makes me feel like I know what's going on there a lot more. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out, by the way, to Scott Burns as well, before Tony Barnhart joins us here to talk about the SEC. And Scott, you jump in here. I had a conversation with Scott recently over my frustrations of not being able to get a hold of Billy. I understand I'm not a daily beat guy, but I felt like over the years, 40 years of everything the head coach ought to get me something, and I didn't get any help from the other past SID at all. I didn't say anything for a couple of years. and people on this show, a lot of people came to me and said, hey, it's not about me deserving it or wanting it, but I just want to have my own personal conversation. Well, Scott got back to me and said, we'll set it up. So we're going to do that either over the computer or in person soon. But I have things I want to ask you about. Like, I would ask something totally different. Like, what's the context of that quote? Scared money don't make money. What was the context of it? I want to know that. Those kinds of things. Scott, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you guys. I mean, things have changed a lot for the better, I think, recently. I think Scott's doing a good job. I think the biggest difference is Scott he's been around the block a little bit. I think he's been in the business for 20 years. He's worked with different coaches. And I don't know if Billy's listening to him more or, if they just have a good connection. I'm not privy to that. But like I said earlier, I think today was one of Billy's best press conferences at Florida by far, just being more insightful. And it's easy to like the guy. I mean, he's a nice guy. We've talked about this before. Yeah. But Florida fans at a program like this, they do want to know. And I do think in today's age, when you don't know, all that leads is to a lot of speculation on Twitter or online, and that's good for nobody. So I do think that's trending in the right direction, and I hope it stays that way because, if he does what he's trying to do at Florida, he can be a very popular man for a few years.
As long as he chooses to stick around, right? As he's moving the right direction.
Yeah, they're not terrible people here. I mean, we want him to succeed too as well. So you're right, Allie. That is a difference we're seeing here. And Scott Burns, I said to him, I've made requests in the past. He said, I don't know that. I have no record of knowing that. So I'm not asking for any privileges. I just want to know what's the reality of perhaps getting an opportunity to interview I have interviewed every coach since Bob Woodruff, but it'll be nice if I could get one. And we're going to bring Tony in just a minute. Scott, I know we're having a little difficulty with your video jumping around here, so I'll probably let you go. If you can come back and make it work, that would be great. Because I'd like to have you back, but we're having a little fuzzy. Allie's real clear, but any final thoughts before we go, Scott, in case we don't get you back?
No, I mean, just you guys have it covered. I'm just ready. You guys are football all year round, right? You love it. I like to venture off a little bit, so I'm going to start doing a lot of baseball and other stuff. I'll come back to spring football, but I got gymnastics, so I think.
Hi, Harriet. I follow all your gymnastics tweets. We're all in gymnastics in this house.
You were at a meet recently, I saw.
I was, yeah. We were there a week ago. We'll be here. We'll be there on Valentine's Day.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I got going on.
That was implying we're just one dimensional here. I watch football. I watch gymnastics. I watch other stuff.
I wasn't
the overtime golf national championship live together on this show.
Wow. All right. I apologize. I didn't know you guys were that diehards.
Appreciate it, brother. All right,
I'll let you guys go. You'll be lucky with that.
Okay? Yeah. If you can come back, we'll let you go get out of here and go. And we'll go get Tony Barnhart. Well, I'll tell you about our sponsors. Let's go do this. Say good evening to Mr. College Football. He's still awake at this time of night. Wow. Evening, Tony. How you doing?
Good evening, guys. Hope everything is well. Hey, I got one for you.
Yeah.
Yesterday, it just shows you how that we don't really have an off season in college football anymore. I had to call yesterday or send a note. I needed to know when something has come up on my schedule. I want to make sure it doesn't conflict with the SEC Media Days in Atlanta next July. I needed the dates. And I said, I'm sorry to seem like every year I come back to you guys earlier and earlier and earlier. Just so you know, July 14th through the 17th in Atlanta. Home game, come see us. So
we can't keep up with stuff. This is, I complain. I'm the old get off my lawn guy because I'll get somebody will write me, we're changing you. We need to change your password on your card. I can't keep up with all those changes my passwords all the time. It's just the world of the internet is crazy enough now when you start changing things. And you can't keep up. Keep it up with the coaching changes. I mean, look, we just named right off names of 2 more coaches at Florida. I've asked Shane Matthews. He said, I've never heard of him. Tony, I don't know how you do it, but if we get a little older or we don't quite move as fast as we used to, it's hard to keep up. Hard to keep up, isn't it?
Well, it is hard to keep up, but I'm just happy that we have the technology, because when we first started, buddy, in this business a million years ago, you had to make phone calls. It was a lot more difficult to get information than it is now. Now we've got too much. Now we've got way too much information, but it's better than not having enough. So,
yeah, well, I don't know how much. I know really Allie is an old soul, a young person. She's been around a long, long time. I find myself for making references to things. There's no way in the world she'd ever know that. And even she knows a lot about the history of Florida football and stuff. But how far back, Allie, have you ever heard of the SEC Skywriters?
I have not. What are the SEC Skywriters?
Okay, this is a little history. Okay, where do I start? Back in the day, I mean, way back in the day, the SEC started to catch up with the Big Ten, I think. The Big Ten had done this. And they got a group of people together and said, we're going to lease a plane.
Okay.
And we're going to take you to all the venues in the SEC.
Okay.
You'll have to pay your own hotel bills and your own plane, whatever. And they picked about 24 people to go out and make the first trip around the SEC.
All right.
Now, there are many stories that have come from this. Some of them are apocryphal. A lot of them are drinking stories that, I mean, look, okay, I got to tell you, I didn't get to see much of that when I was there. I mean, honestly, it was so much work. You had to hit sometimes, Tony, 2 schools a day, interview 2 coaches and players, get all your notes, go back and write one of your stories, get up and catch the plane the next morning. But there are many other stories about those travels. And it was unique because how else would you get a face-to-face with Bear Bryant, right?
Right.
So we were 24 of us. I think there was maybe 3 of us alive still that made that first trip in 1966.
Wow.
I've even had a conversation with ESPN about potentially a 30 for 30. I don't think they care about it. It's not sexy enough for them. But I mean, Tony, if I said to you, okay, here's what we did. We took our typewriters, lugged our typewriters on with us with our clothes and stuff, and then we typed our stories. We had a place to sit down in a press room. We got there, and then to get stories back, how do we get them back, Tony? Western Union.
Either Western Union or there came a machine called a telecopier.
That was much later. That came about 5 years later. Then there was
I know. I remember sitting on a plane with Charlie Roberts of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He had his story. He had copies. He had stored. He had just sent it to Western Union, and he had copies, and he was going back through it. So.
Yeah, and it was amazing because not only did they not have a place, you had to go find a local Western Union station and type NPR collect, which means night press rate collect. Take your copy of it. They would have to keyboard it back in and send it to your office, and then the newspaper would take it and they would set it in type, galley types and an old line of type, and then that was how they made it. It was, you talk about archaic and Stone Age, that was it. Can you imagine, Tony, doing that today?
Well, I did it, buddy. I did a version of that when I was working in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah.
From 77 to 84, we had an ACC football tour, and we got a big old Greyhound bus, and we bussed to all 8 locations, and this is before big expansion. And the great thing about it was that they got those 2 big luggage bins on the Greyhound bus,
right?
And one of them actually had luggage in it. The other one had, shall we say, adult beverages on the other side.
Okay, we didn't have that.
But we did have that. Buddy, the good news is this. When it comes to the Skywriters Tour, the statute of limitations has run out on just about all the stuff you guys did. So,
well, I only had 3 years of it, and I got to say, I got no real crazy stories to tell about it. As far as I'm concerned, it was work. Hard work,
A
man.
lot of work.
And my roommate was Neil Abner, later the sports editor of the New York Times. I will tell you this one story, and I don't want to digress too far. I want Allie to bring us back out of it and tell her about it when she started out. Is that Neil Abner? He was a hard-nosed reporter. I mean, he would get after it. He would, he would. There was at that time, race was a big story in Ole Miss, as you remember, during those days, and making the transition. And race and segregation was big. And Neil was, no better word, say that he was a ball buster. And we traveled together, and he would read me his leads. When he got to Ole Miss, he read, and that was when they were getting to a point they were about to have to make some changes at Ole Miss. They've been winning championships, but now it'd run out. And Neil's lead was age, apathy, and our apartheid have come to roost in Missouri and Mississippi football. Wow. You think they like that in Mississippi? The next year when we flew in there, we all joked about, you know what, we better be careful. Maybe get shot down out of the sky, and that wasn't a very popular stance. But things like that went on. That was some hard reporting when you had to go face the people right there. Tough. Now, Allie, when did you pick up on this kind of stuff? What was happening in the SEC?
So let's see. Well, I started out covering high school sports and writing. Actually, very originally, Rivals let me write for them for free when I was in high school. And
I write for free. Isn't that nice?
Right. That's when I very first started. And when I was in college, then they started paying me. I did this series with them, which they do it now. And I think they do it anonymously now, but it was called Parting Shots. And it was essentially exit questions with players as they were graduating or going to the NFL or something like that. And I knew so many people on the team because Eric and I dated the whole time we were in college. And I think that players were so much more apt to tell me stuff that fans would maybe find juicy because this was the 18-year-old girl sitting right there, asking these questions. So I got so many cool stories and some headlines out of these players that maybe, if they were talking to somebody that they viewed as an adult doing, an adult job, maybe they wouldn't have said the kind of things they did. But I started off doing that and then and continued to cover high school sports as well, all through college. And CBS, the Local 6, the Orlando affiliate, is who kind of gave me my Florida start there. I did a pre and post game show with their sports anchor for several years. David Pingalore, yes. And so Ping and I traveled to so many cities. If you have ever met, buddy, I know you know David Pingalore. Ping is a trip in himself. And so like when you go to a city like New Orleans with David Pingalore and Judd Davis, like the amount of stories that I have lasts a lifetime. And I was like 22 years old too. So that was, and just blown away at.
I actually saw one of those shows when you were on it.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
That is really funny, but it was really fun. And, that just kind of gave me the bug. I started doing radio in Orlando, probably a year into doing that job and I did drive time radio, got to talk about whatever happened to be going on at the moment. Radio, I think, is my favorite because I came in every day at 4:30 in the morning in my pajamas. And I had like a baggy sweatshirt on and pajama pants, and no one ever had any idea. And I just got to talk about sports, which, that's so different than TV because every single comment that I would get in general would have something to do with what I had on or what I looked like or whatever. Any of the comments I got with radio were always just about the content, which was really kind of a refreshing change. But
Tony came into radio a little bit late, but not too late. Matter of fact, here's how I met Tony. True story, Tony. I was doing a show in Denver from my home every morning, my studio, and I had my wife then was working on, was helping me get kind of hold of people. And of course, the sports editor in Atlanta was Van McKenzie, a guy I knew quite well. And story broke some kind about something in the SEC. And I told Joni, call Van and see if he can come on the show today. And we'll do so-and-so and so-and-so. And so she came back and said, well, Van's not available. And I've got a guy named Tony Barnhart who's going to come on. I said, really? She says, yeah. I said, she said, he sounds pretty good. He said, okay, I'll take it. So that's how I met Tony. He started on the radio show.
Mhm.
Of course, he went on to become famous after that, Mr. College Football. But yeah, those were some great times. And radio is something about radio. We had a conversation about it last night. Tony, you've done this, and you probably haven't, Allie, because you're too young. But when you traveled around the SEC, you went to games during the day. And at nighttime, when you traveled back to your destination, you most always had your radio on, AM, right?
Yeah.
With the stations in Atlanta, WSM, WLW in New Orleans, and Charlotte, WB, those 50,000 watt stations. And I love going down the road and listening to those ball games at nighttime because we didn't have them on TV. It was such great to hear those voices of those guys. It's wonderful. I actually heard, by the way, not driving down the road, but I heard the Billy Cannon run and a drive-in Ocala on the radio. Oh, and yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
1959.
That was so many memorable moments about radio. It's really is. Let me stop. I've been running my mouth. Let me get this in real fast. Titan MRI. I want to tell you about Titan MRI. Now it's Titan MRI and imaging. They acquired Highfield MRI. Joe Colorio started Highfield MRI in 1997. Now he's back. Titan MRI and imaging now has 3 locations, 2 in Gainesville, with its Park Avenue location, and now at the Millennium Center, and 1 in Lake City, serving all of Columbia County and the Valdosta, Georgia area. Titan MRI and imaging offers the same great customer service they always did. They're now able to accept your insurance if you'd like, or they have a special way you can get through their convenient self-pay window and do it there. They offer MRIs, CT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds, easy scheduling with lots of options, including evening appointments if you need them. Larger MRI machines, so the patient comfort is considered when they go there, so you won't get claustrophobia. So soon coming to Ocala as well, Titan MRI imaging, MRI like you've never seen before. Check them out. All right, so guys, I think we're sitting here pretty good for a promising season. I don't want to get into the way too early predictions. And Tony, I have a little bit of a feeling something's different at Georgia. Tony, I heard about it, unfortunately Kirby's had a bad off year. His dad passed right after the game, right?
Right.
He didn't have the QB situation resolved. That whole thing has changed now. He's gone to Miami. Assess where Georgia is right now, and if they can get back.
They can get back because they've recruited very well the last 5 years. They've had, I think, 4 or 5 straight top 5 classes. You don't have to be number 1, which if you finish in the top 5, you've done a good job of recruiting. The issue, of course, is going to be quarterback. Is it going to be Gunnar Stockton? Is it going to be Ryan Puglisi? They've got another player coming in, and so they've got to satisfy that issue. The other things, though, is to give Kirby Smart credit, his receivers were average at best, and I think I'm being kind when I said they were average. And he went out in the transfer portal, signed a couple of guys, and they think they've addressed that. They got to run the ball a little bit more effectively. I think Georgia's still going to be in the top 2-3 teams in the SEC, probably Texas, as we sit here and discuss it right now. But Georgia has enough talent to be back, but they've got to address those specific areas that I talked about. They've got to address those.
Allie, there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen at LSU. Ryan Kelly's still a bit of a hot seat. People are not happy how that ended. He supposedly had a good offseason in the portal. We know about that. Ole Miss obviously is going to be good, but not as good without the players they had before. Tennessee might be a little bit better. The team that sort of hovers over everybody comes to Gainesville, by the way, like week 5 or 6, Texas Longhorns. How good, Allie, are they going to be?
Texas, it recruits incredibly well. They're incredibly well coached. I'm sure that they will come in ready to play. I am super interested to see this DJ Lagway Arch Manning matchup. These are 2 guys with top 5 Heisman odds. I think it will be a really good matchup. I don't think you can glean anything off of last year's game. I don't feel Lagway was injured that game. We went with our third string quarterback. I do kind of feel like Florida was like, all right, we know we're losing this one, so let's prepare for the next one down the road. So I just don't think there's anything we could glean from that. But I think if you look at how Florida played against Georgia this year, if DJ Lagway doesn't go down, they would have beaten them. I think you can look at how they played against LSU and Ole Miss. They were dominant in those games. They have the ability and the talent to hang with Texas. If you can hang with Georgia, you can hang with Texas. Georgia beat Texas twice.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know if we'll have a bigger game ever than when Texas and Arch Manning comes to the Swamp.
I mean, it's going to for sure be the biggest one that's been there in a long time. Most recently would probably have to be that when Alabama came and Mullen almost upset them. But Tennessee comes to Gainesville this year. That's going to be a huge game. Florida just plays a schedule that is filled with huge games. This Texas is probably the biggest one in the Swamp this year, but they're going to play a lot of really good, tough ball games this year.
And guys, it's going to be a good season. Here's my list of quarterbacks in no particular order: Garrett Nussmeier, Arch Manning, Nico from Tennessee, DJ Lagway, Lenoris Sellers, Diego Pavia, transfer from Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold, who's moving over from Oklahoma, going to Auburn, Gunnar Stockton, Taylon Green at Arkansas, playing for Bob Petrino. My point is this: when you go that deep in quality quarterbacks, I don't know if there's a Heisman winner there or not, but when you go that deep, you're going to have a good year. There's just too many good players at that position.
That's a good point. That's one of the things that happened. The quarterbacking fell off. Way back in the day, Gary Danielson told me on an interview one time, I want to say it was 2005. And he said to me, the SEC is set up for a run here of great teams. I said, what do you mean? He said, they've got the coaches and the quarterbacks now next few years. And that's exactly what happened. They went on that 7-year tear. They had the coaches and the quarterbacks. This is what happens in a year, Allie, when you don't have the coaches and the quarterbacks.
That was this year.
Different.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably why the SEC took a little bit of a step back on the national stage this year. There wasn't as many guys at quarterback as we are used to. And even the guys that we expected a lot out of had more of a roller coaster season than maybe we thought they would. Carson Beck is a good example. Jackson Dart is a good example. Guys that are incredibly talented, but maybe didn't have the type of year that we kind of expected from them. And top quarterback play is needed in this era of college football. We're not in the mid 2000s where you need a strong running game and a game manager quarterback. We are in an era of college football where your quarterbacks themselves have to be able to make plays.
Allie, it's been the biggest change I've seen in the last 15 years in college football, particularly the SEC, is you used to be able, if you had a great defense and you were well coached and you could run the ball, you would win just about every game.
Look at Alabama when they started winning titles. Greg McElroy was their quarterback, and he was a great game manager, but he wasn't out there, breaking every record.
But you can't do it with a good quarterback. You must have an elite quarterback to play for championships, and that's. I think there's some elite names on that list I just read you.
What's happened in the pros is one interesting to see if this is mirrored in by colleges. Is the running back now suddenly is back in play. Look at the teams that have done well. You have to have the guy for the football in the NFL, but the running back is a forgotten man almost. If that's the case, what running backs do we have around the SEC who could step up? Florida's got one, I think. Tony, if you called out the names of the running backs right away, who would they be?
Yeah, at this point, I don't know, particularly for Georgia. Obviously, they've got to be able to run the ball better. And the other thing is Georgia ended the year not happy with their offensive line play. in the playoffs, they were wearing that left tackle out. So those are some things that have to be addressed. But we all know that the passing game works better when you have some semblance of play action ability. You got to run it some to set up the play action pass, and that's something Georgia's got to work on.
And by the way, that is that's the basis of Billy's offense. Run the football, and then get play action going. Mm-hmm. Now, my gosh, they couldn't have a worse year for drop passes than Georgia, as we said earlier. I don't know what got into them there. It's kind of like when you forget about those great receivers they used to have who never dropped the pass.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awful. And
that's why Kirby spent a lot of time in the transfer portal, because he had a bunch of guys who could get open but couldn't catch the ball. I mean, that is one stat you do not want to be as number one in drops.
You had a tight end who didn't drop the ball for 4 years, and then suddenly you got receivers that can't catch it. It becomes obvious how important those guys are.
Kirby Smart is too good of a coach for the dip to last long, though, and so I expect to see just a different Georgia team next year, but the rivals kind of got to strike while the iron is hot, right? They will not be down long. If I'm Florida, if I'm Tennessee, if I'm some of these teams that just can't get the best of Georgia, I'm putting all my eggs in the basket of it being this year, because there's no way Kirby has a sustained dip. He's just too good of a coach for that to be the case.
Yeah.
And remember, the Georgia schedule flips from what it was last year. Ole Miss, Alabama, and Texas all come to Athens this year.
I saw a stat that was the schools that signed the number one guy at any given position in the 2025 class, and Georgia signed like 6 guys that were number one in the country at their position. I mean, this incoming class is incredibly talented. Florida had one on that list. It was kicker. But Georgia had by far and away the most guys on that list of anybody in the country. And they recruit too well, too consistently for there to be a dip for long.
Yeah, let me give you these names. This is when you put them all together, Florida got this new guy, Onis Konanbanny.
Banny, yep.
Tony, or say it with me. Onis Konanbanny, okay?
Konanbanny?
Yeah, he's a 4-star from Tennessee, and Florida just got him. They got him to commit. So he was their big signing of the. Now, Allie, help me out. Someone says, look, this secondary class is looking really good. 4-star cornerback Ben Hanks, legacy sign is. We all know about Hanks.
I think he ended up as a 5-star on some recruiting sites as well. Okay. Incredibly highly rated.
Okay. 4-star safety Hilton Stubbs, right? 4-star safety Lagonzo Hayward, and now 4-star cornerback Onis Konanbanny.
Yeah.
Does that sound pretty good to you?
Yeah, I mean, Konanbanny, so he's been committed to Tennessee since, I want to say since August, maybe, a pretty long period of time. And honestly, when Florida started recruiting him, they couldn't even get him on campus for a visit. He took several official visits last summer. Florida was not one of them. They did finally get him on campus in November and, worked wonders. He came again in January and supposedly silent committed to Florida at that point. And then, yesterday is when he announced that he was flipping and obviously signed today. But this is the second player in this class that Florida has flipped from Tennessee. And Tennessee arguably had a much stronger year than Florida did. This is a team that made the playoffs. And so, it's always huge to get the players you want. It's even larger when you can steal them from someone that you play that would benefit from them. This guy's interesting too. Konanbanny's from Europe.
Isn't he from England? No wonder you could.
Yeah, he started out playing soccer. Supposedly he was his team's field goal kicker too. Played both ways and kicked field goals. But he has only played the game since I think 2022 potentially. So very, very green. But think about a guy that has the ability to be a 4-star safety in 2 years. That's pretty unheard of, and really kind of makes you think he's got to have a ton of upside because he's getting whatever coaching he's getting in high school, which not a knock on high school coaches, but it's not the same that he's going to get when he comes into a SEC caliber staff. So I would expect him to have a really large upside. It's a good pickup.
All right, so here's a side note. Charlie Strong being mentioned as the new defensive line coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks. How about that? Interesting, huh? Yeah.
Wow.
It was interesting. I heard he was joining Florida staff as a
that was a rumor about a month ago.
For a long time, yeah. So this was an interesting thing. But he's lived in Tampa since he worked for USF, so this is home to him. So I'm excited for him.
Yeah. All right, guys. The new win totals are out for Vegas. Okay. I'm going to go through them, and I want you to tell me if it sounds like it's too much. If you go over or under, if you were betting your money today, how would you go here on this? You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's start at. Let's see where we start. Let's start with Florida 6.5 and Colorado 6.5, and anyway 6.5 Florida. Too much or too little?
Too little.
Too little.
Mm-hmm.
Under.
You mean you'll win more than that?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, all right. So you would bet the over there. All right. I'm going to skip some of these other schools here. Miami 8.5. That sound high?
No, I think they'll probably go higher. They play in the ACC. They're going to play like 2 hard games a year. They can walk to winning 10.
Yeah, 8.5.
And is Carson Beck going to be healthy though?
Yeah, that's a good point. Michigan 8.5 also. And LSU 8.5 and Alabama 8.5.
I'm going to go LSU over, Alabama under, and I think Michigan under potentially too. It just depends on which Michigan team's showing up. Are we getting the one we saw most of the season, or are we getting the one that played Ohio State?
Right.
Well, I don't know about Michigan, but I like Alabama over and LSU over. So
yeah, I like Alabama over and LSU under. Okay, so now we get up to the big boys. You got Clemson, Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia at 9.5.
Georgia over. Clemson over.
Yeah.
I'm going to go under for Tennessee. And what was the last one? Texas over.
Yep. I agree with Allie. I like the 3 overs. Those schools 3 over. I just got a feeling because of, as I mentioned to you, Georgia's schedule, because it flips and they got those teams playing in Athens instead of going on the road. I think they're over.
Schedule is so important here, and I hope they take it more in consideration this year. Okay, here are the 10.5s, which I got a problem with, but again, it's scheduling. Penn State 10.5.
I would have to see their schedule but I mean, I think they'll probably win 10 games, so I'm going to go with under.
Tony?
They go out and pay $4 million to get Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator. I think that was huge. That was them taking what they think is the final steps. I'm going with the over.
Okay, I'm going under there at Notre Dame at 10.5. The Irish are back. What do you think? Do they have 11 wins in them?
Yeah, I think so.
With the quarterback gone?
That's I'm going to say over for Notre Dame.
I go under. And then we've got the last 2 at 10.5. The team we've forgotten about, we all railed about how great they were until they got to the end of the season. Oregon of the Big Ten. How about that for anomaly? 10.5 for Oregon and 10.5 for Ohio State.
Over, both of them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay. Over, both of them.
All right. Well, that's the first way too early assessment of what's ahead there. Guys, you've been great tonight. Thank you so much for coming on the program and doing this. I love being on with you guys and talking ball. It's been a fun night. Tony, thank you very much.
All right, guys. Always good to see you.
Allie. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. See you guys later.
All right. See you later. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up the night and we're going to tell you about our good friends at Windstar Medical Research. A terrific group of people doing terrific things. and I'm very proud to have them as a sponsor and to call them my friends. They do so much good stuff in our community. Number one, they support a lot of things with Florida related. Joe Sorrentino, his son Joey played at Florida. Now I find dentist there at Marion Dental in Ocala, my dentist there. And then his friend, Mary Brantley, now the wife of Scott Brantley, such a great lady. And of course, Scott, we think the world of. So Renstar Medical Research is in the business of our health. They want to help you and they want you to help them. And they'd like for you to participate in some of their clinical trials. These are so important because they help them get a bearing on exactly how our health is in our area. And with that data they can send off, I get a better idea about what kind of treatments we need and what is our indigenous health here. So please, if you get the opportunity, go into renstar.net and look up the clinical trials they got coming up. They have a variety of things and sign up for them. If you qualify, if you get on, you can be compensated for your time and travel. You'll be doing a good thing for yourself, good thing for Renstar, and a good thing for our community. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Good night tonight. Appreciate it very much. Our guests tonight, our sponsors. We'll be back tomorrow night with Ben Troop and France Beard and Lauren Meadows and the gang. And we hope you'll join us soon. Appreciate all your support on the program and all your listenership and viewership. We want you to come back tomorrow night and let's do this. Don't forget tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It's Sidelines with Rob Brown and Brendan. They'll be on and have a great guest for you there. And so many of you listen to that program and take part in it. So you know what I'm talking about. So check them out. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Good night, folks.